Adam Benigni of WGRZ TV, Sports Talk Live, Buffalo. Sal Maiorana, Rochester Democrat and Chronicle. And Sal, you're outnumbered today, man. You've got
what a world I'm living in. 2 TV guys and me.
Yep.
Oh my God.
It is. It's a great place to be. Channel 2 Sports Director now, John Scott, Sports Talk Live colleague, and a lot to digest, I guess, and discuss with this team at 4-2. John, welcome to the show. I've probably asked you 2 or 3 times about this. It's about frickin' time you're on with us.
Yeah, I think one of them, I was in a parking lot going to the Bills joint practice and driving at the time or something. Didn't work out. I don't have to tell you, you sat in my chair where I'm at for a long time. You understand
Yep.
how fitting other things in outside of the traditional job duties is not the easiest to do. Of course, we'll throw to the mix, I have a 10-month-old child. So, it's long overdue, but glad to be here.
All right.
Yeah, that first excuse was total BS, but the second one is definitely, that hits home. No doubt about that. Having gone through that with 3 of my own, I remember those days, John.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't buy some of the BS that Sal spews, and there's a lot of it on this show. Okay. These guys show up in their, well, maybe not Sal, but they'll show up in their designer jeans and the thin laptops and everything. And I'm not saying it isn't. It's obviously every one of these jobs is demanding, but there's no gear to lug and everything, all of that.
True.
So Sal, just stay in your lane. Okay.
I pull up with my golf shirt and shorts and my little backpack and I'm ready to go. And I produce all that content with that vibe going on. I don't have my little buggy. I don't have my little buggy to carry behind me into the stadium.
Yeah, you're just carrying the weight of the Cubs and the Yankees losses on your back.
Yeah, that's true. I do.
All right.
Carry that.
Speaking of the weight of losses, let's start there first. 2 straight heading into the bye week for this Bills team. Offense held under 30 points, what has been uncharacteristically for both of those games. Defensively, they're a sieve against the run. They have all types of issues in the secondary. I suppose we'll start with the biggest problem in the Falcons loss, which would be on the offensive side. Let's just start there and we'll kind of work our way through to everything. John, I'll start with you. I think receiver is probably the primary area. What can they do to fix this thing? And obviously the trade deadline factors are not too far on the horizon in early November.
I think that's the most logical place and path they would go because they're devoid of top-end talent. And I don't think you're going to get the type of talent that we largely have been clamoring for years. It's since Stephon Diggs left, and you could argue that the back half of his tenure, that final season, they were still looking for someone to be the alpha dog and someone who could consistently win one-on-one matchups and be a reliable go-to guy here. Listen, I recognize everybody eats, and maybe the pressure release that takes away from any sort of quarterback to not feel beholden to funnel targets to one individual person on a consistent basis. However, the flaw in this, everybody eats so we don't have to invest high value in the position still, is problematic. And that's where they're at here. Khalil Shakir is a solid receiver, but he should not be your most reliable number 1 guy that you have splitting out wide. That's just that he should be in a great situation, which your MVP quarterback should be surrounded by. He should be like your 2nd or 3rd guy, and he's not. You trade down and draft Keon Coleman. This is where you are at here. So that's why I would say they need to go get someone, and whether that's Rashid Shaheed or it's Chris Olave or Jacoby Myers. Listen, you're not really bumping things up into remedying the true issue here, but at least you're infusing stronger talent than what they have right now, because the likes of Curtis Samuel and even I would say Josh Palmer, these outside guys that they've added, are not cutting it.
Yeah, absolutely. We just watched a game last night, guys, where they funneled 23 targets to Jamar Chase, caught 16, and he basically was the reason why the Bengals upset the Steelers. So the lack of a number 1 receiver on this team is glaring. I told Adam the other day when we recorded, and you probably have heard me muttered in the press box, John, I don't know how many times I said it when Diggs was here. oh my God, where would they be today without Diggs? So all the plays that he made, and yeah, they may have been trying to funnel the ball to him, but look what he produced. And look what that offense produced when he was at his best. You're right. The last half of his last season, when Brady, by the way, Brady took over and instituted everybody eats, then it fell off. But before that, where was their offense going to be without Stephon Diggs? They are lacking that piece. And like you said, and we also talked about it, there's nobody on the trade market that's going to make a hill of a beans of difference on this offense, unless you make some swing for the fences trade for someone like A.J. Brown, which you're going to have to give somebody else off your roster who's making that kind of money to make it work. What are they going to do? They're nothing. They're not going to get anything done at the trade deadline, I think, that's going to make any bit of a difference right now.
You know what? Like, let's look at it last year too. Right? I think there's a bigger picture to kind of look at here with the production of that offense last year, where everybody eats really became a thing, right? And obviously you can look at caliber opponent through the first 4 games of this season and make a very legitimate argument, but there was plenty of production on that side of the football. I think in one sense, teams are sort of catching up to what they do. The Patriots did an outstanding job defensively against them, as did Atlanta. And then, and I've said this, Sal, to you here on this show, and obviously the number of Monday nights on Sports Talk Live, John, we've each made this point. This offense is at its best when they have James Cook going, right? And especially in these last, I mean, they really, and this is on Brady to a great extent, I mean, they need to make him more of a factor, especially later on in football games, don't you think?
Yeah, and I also think that when we all sat in that room the night James Cook was drafted and Brandon Beane is banging the table about how great of a receiver he is, that's what they drafted him to be. The guy is never involved in the passing game, really, outside of Ty Johnson. I know Ray Davis caught the touchdown pass the other night, but they don't use the running backs in the passing game. This is where, if you do not have top-end talent, you need to, from a coordinator seat, scheme things up more creatively. And I think that's also lacking here. You have weapons at the running back position that can do things in multiple ways, not to the level of necessarily Bijan Robinson, but they don't have to. Like, you made the good point, Adam. People have figured out kind of how they're going to operate currently. So what's the pivot? What's the adjustment here? And I think extending the tree a little bit here and spreading people out and hitting people with things that they aren't accustomed to this Bills offense utilizing, like Dalton Kincaid early in the season, that's been effective. I think that's the path to go as well.
The running back issue is bizarre to me. I think I read somewhere, or, there's a billion different factoids that get spewed out these days with all these databases. But I think the Bills were like bottom 5 in running back pass targets or something like that. But it makes sense because it probably is true. They do not throw to the backs. Look what happened in that Ravens game, guys. They threw that little swing pass to James Cook. He turned it into a highlight reel, 50-yard run almost to the end zone. Why is that not part of their offense? Right now, with the inability of these guys on the outside to get open, and then what we saw the other night with the Falcons blitzing the hell out of them and making it really difficult for Allen because nobody's open, how easy would it be to just flip it out to James Cook and let him do things in open space? It's such an easy outlet, and it's got to be so easy to add to your game plan. But the problem is they take him off the field. He played 53% of the snaps the other night. He's one of the best running backs in the league. Why is he off the field on third down and Ty Johnson's on the field? Ty Johnson isn't a quarter of the player that James Cook is. It's just bizarre to me. He falls in love, Brady does, with his personnel groups and being multiple and all these different things. How about figuring out like 2 or 3 things that actually are going to work and maybe stick to those for a little while and get back on track?
Cook has been working, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the passing game, I'm talking about. Running game, we know it's working. What about the passing game? Get him involved in the passing game. We know he can do it.
Let's get into Brady a little bit. I mean, every coordinator goes through this. Teams kind of wisen to you. And he's done a hell of a job since kind of taking over for Dorsey there and creating more balance with that run game, to echo the point that we've made. But I think people are starting to figure it out, right? And you're getting into these end arounds, and I don't want to make too much of that, but, we talked about creativity just a second ago. I mean, there's creativity that's effective, and then there's getting too cute, right? John, where do you stand on how Brady is calling things right now?
I think we often hear from guys after the game, well, they get paid too. Oh, they make adjustments as well. But it has been a pattern even in victory where they start off well and they hit lulls either in the second or the third quarter. And an offense with an MVP quarterback, it's just you shouldn't go from 100 to 0 to 100. That there's really very rarely does it seem like, oh, they'll get a couple first downs and then they'll punt. It seems like they're storming down the field or they're getting 3 and out. And to me, that sort of inconsistency falls on the play callers. Just penalties, I think, have been baked into that as well. But that's where I fall with Brady, and he has it in the bag. I'm just thinking of that Curtis Samuel touchdown a couple weeks ago where he's in the motion and circles back in the backfield, and he was wide open for this touchdown. There's little motion, there's little disguise and misdirection. There's the play action's not there, and it just seems to throttle down when things are going well, and they don't seem to quickly enough have a secondary or third pitch at their disposal to then say, oh, okay, we were doing it this way the first couple series. Oh, and we kept trying to do it. We don't. That's when like you get into these weird end arounds and some things get too cute and things like that. It seems like they're a little behind in terms of when the other team has figured it out. And now we're reaching a points where, oh, in more longer versions of the game, they still can't figure it out, and that's what's led to back-to-back losses here.
I think part of it too, guys, is we keep circling back to the receiver issue on this team, and I think he's feeling a little bit of a squeeze and trying to get things to work. That's why he's calling an end around twice or 2 weeks in a row the way he did. He's realizing that his bag is shrinking of what he can do because these guys aren't winning on the outside. Now, I know the film gurus on Twitter are all out there pointing out that, oh, yeah, Keon Coleman was open here, this and that. Look, on a consistent basis, these guys are not winning downfield. I don't give a shit what these guys are telling me on film. It's very clear to me that there are guys that are not winning enough. And when they do, something else is happening to Josh Allen that's preventing him from going there. Namely, the other night, pressure. He was under the gun all night long. And I told Adam the other day, John, that's going to be a kind of a blueprint for opposing defenses now until the Bills can solve it. They're going to blitz the hell out of Josh Allen because they know he's not going to have anywhere to go quickly with the ball. That's a problem that Brady's going to have to come up with a solution for very quickly.
Well, you know what? Keon Coleman was supposed to be part of the solution, right? We should probably address him specifically. And Sal, I know you weren't enamored with the pick when it happened.
Nope.
There was all kinds of fanfare when it happened. And the reality of this is setting in that he effectively is your number one, right? And John, what do they really have there? And kind of how far down the road? I mean, I understand it's early in his career, but when you've seen this sample, I mean, where do you stand on Coleman, his place in this offense, and his future in Buffalo?
I mean, they're tagged to him for a bit. I just feel like I thought maybe with the Coleman pick, they were rebuilding the receiver room backwards. And it just so happened he was the next guy in immediately after Diggs, but they kind of knew maybe he's a number 2. But then the way they operated this offseason made me think that, oh, well, they think that he has to be their best pass catching option on the outside. He's inconsistent. I mean, that's just the reality of Keon Coleman. And no one's path is completely cemented a year and a half into their NFL career. But I think you take the evaluations of him coming out of Florida State, you carry it into the year and a half we've seen of him here with the Buffalo Bills, and it kind of mirrors. Like everything is playing out as it was predicted by people who knew what they're talking about in evaluating him coming out of college. And the Bills, I think, were hoping with many players they do this. Well, once they get into our system, we can make them become things that they weren't. And I think that is a place where it's a different conversation, but they oftentimes draft people that should be best suited as like Coleman should be in the slot. He's a big slot. Like that's really where he should be. But you have 5 slot receivers, so you can't put him in the slot every single time. You want him to be an outside guy, and thought that, oh, once he's in our building with Josh Allen, we can make him a consistent outside guy. He's not. And so that's where you're at here a year and a half in. And it's like Dalton Kincaid, you drafted as a big slot. Keon Coleman's best as a big slot. And Khalil Shakir, you just paid a ton of money to be your number 1 slot guy. That's kind of the makeup of a room where when a year ago they're talking about basketball teams and a big guy and a small guy and all this stuff. Well, it's almost like they've made a starting 5 on a basketball court that's all the same position.
Yeah.
You know what?
The roster construction, particularly at that position, is suboptimal. There's just no question about it. You trade up to get Dalton Kincaid. What are you trading up to get a tight end for? Trade up to get a receiver, a difference-making receiver that year. And I forget who was available. They could have gone a little higher than 23 to get someone. Last year, Brian Thomas was screaming. It was a screaming pick for the Bills to make, to go trade up and get ahead of, it turned out Jacksonville, I think at 20, took him, or whatever, 21 maybe. That was a guy that everyone thought in that draft class, that's a Buffalo Bill. That's the kind of guy that can help him. And he doesn't make those moves. He traded up to get a tight end. The roster construction in a lot of places right now is coming into question, but that receiver room, we could talk all day about it. It's just not put together the way it's supposed to be put together.
Yeah, I mean, understanding it's just year 2 for Coleman, but, you know, and I understand they're asking him.
He is what he is, Adam.
Yeah, he is. I mean, but I guess we made this point the other day. I understand you're asking him, you know, not to play to his strengths at times, putting him on the outside. But even when they've asked him to play to his strengths at this point, I just expected more from what we saw, heard in the offseason, saw in training camp. You would expect, you know, the trend to be in a more positive direction right now, even on contested catches, John and Sal, right? We've seen him lose.
I think, I mean, you've seen it at points. I mean, he gets benched to start the New England game, has a fumble immediately after that, and then down the stretch in the 4th quarter, he makes that great catch on the sideline, makes the catch in the end zone. I mean, it's there. It's just not there consistently. And you're going to have to ride the wave with this guy for as long as you're going to have him on the football team. And that's not the quality of a top, reliable wide receiver. That's just not. That's a guy that you would have. You know who was kind of like that? Gabe Davis. I mean, and they moved on from Gabe Davis because of the inconsistencies with Gabe Davis. And then you just replaced him with a younger 2nd-round pick version of him. And I think you're going to get the similar type of results with Coleman as you did with Davis.
Yeah,
so I think Davis is gonna be the guy who ends up being their trade deadline acquisition too. I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, John. I mean, why the hell is he on the team if not for that reason? He's rehabbing wherever he is in that stage of his knee injury. It just feels like, why the hell did you bring him back if you're not going to put him on the active roster? I mean, he is a little bit different than Curtis Samuel, Elijah Moore. At least he is a guy who can go on the outside and do something for you. Am I crazy about Gabe Davis? No, but here's a guy who has done something for the Buffalo Bills in the past. And if he's, you know, anywhere close to what he was before he left, he is a guy that I think could help them a little bit. He's not a great difference maker, but I think he would definitely be an upgrade over a few guys that are getting some of the snaps right now.
You're putting the balls in the basket of a guy coming off an ACL, a knee injury. I mean, that's a lot to ask for someone out the gate to not just kind of ease your way back into it, but to say, hey, well, you were successful with Josh Allen a few years ago when you were younger, healthier. Maybe that could happen again. But they've also tried that card with Cole Beasley and Jordan Poyer and Micah Hott. I mean, the list goes on. And every single time, basically, you're getting a diminished version of who that player was at their best with the Bills. And I would expect, I do think they'll give Davis some opportunities once he's healthy and ready. But I think the expectations would have to be, you're not going to get even the Gabe Davis you saw and were frustrated with years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, here we are 20 minutes in, and we haven't even discussed the defense yet, which you could argue is an even larger issue for this football team as you look toward the remainder of the regular season. FanDuel, presenting sponsor for this show, has the Bills and Chiefs tied at plus 650 to win the Super Bowl at this point. So Buffalo still remaining a Super Bowl favorite, a co-favorite now, and plus 155 to finish with over 12.5 wins. So those are just some of the numbers and the trends as far as Vegas and FanDuel sees things. I mean, the defense has been their shortcoming, obviously. They invested so much in it in the draft, and they've tried to address it to such a great extent. I think they're playing catch up in a lot of respects. But with the run defense, I mean, this has to do with philosophy as much as anything. Sal, you mentioned roster construction, the type of players they draft, the impact of the players they draft. I mean, it's kind of a live with giving up yards on the ground philosophy on defense. They like nimble, they like speed, but they're not as stout as they need to be. And I think that speaks largely to what's going on in terms of the run defense. And then, you can talk injuries, and I think they've got real problems in the secondary too, which when you mention the trade deadline, I mean, that's an area that I'd be fine if they chose to address things there as well.
Yeah, look, their run defense, their defensive line, as we know, has been impacted by injuries for sure. So they're struggling up front. When you're playing Fedarius Mathis and Zion Logue and Jordan Phillips, for crying out loud, what do you expect? But what's really been strange, guys, is that it hasn't been a total meltdown by the D line. What's happening in their run game is the second and third levels have absolutely sucked. That's what's killing them. Terrell Bernard, before he got hurt, he has not had a great year. He's a turnover machine, which is a great thing to have. He has got a nose for the ball. There's no doubt about it. But he has not been very good. And the safety play, as we know, they just miss tackles all day long. It's just awful. Some of those long runs that have broken against the Bills should not have been nearly as long. They should have been 81 yards for Robinson, should have been 40, right? I mean, that could have been cut in half if Cole Bishop makes a tackle. There are plays like that throughout these 9-yard gains that should be 5-yard gains. It's the tackling, and it's coming really from the second and third levels has been the biggest problem with the run defense, as far as I'm concerned. Maybe you guys don't agree, but that's where I think the biggest problem has been.
Yeah, I think for me, I would maybe put coaching and roster construction more on the second and third levels. Up front and against the run, I think you got to put it on the players. I mean, what they're not hitting the gaps that then do their gap integrity. It's not the word that we like to hear when asking questions, but it is a reality. They are not in their gaps consistently. And I think Sean alluded to it. You're seeing Deion Walker get 4 tackles for a loss, but that young player is not always in the place he's supposed to be. Then the linebackers are not backfilling it, and then you get into tackling issues. So if you miss your gap, and then someone at the second or third level has to make a play and they're not making it, boom, that's where you're getting 10, 15, 20, 81-yard type run. So I think everyone is responsible in some capacity, but I do think that schematically, I usually lean to the why the hell is Drake London open down the field 15, 20 yards all the time? Well, that's because schematically, they play soft. They do the net. They don't want to get beat over the top. That's where I have issues schematically. And then they don't have the personnel like they've had in the years past to make up for it, maybe do the closing speed or read things better to tighten those windows here. So that's what's maybe you, depending upon how you want to look at it, optimistic or pessimistic here, encouraging or discouraging moving forward of there is responsibility all over the place for people to get better because everyone has been bad through 6 weeks.
How about cornerback and safety? Let's kind of lump that in because I think it needs to be addressed here. I mean, now obviously Hairston, we'll see what happens with him, and that's been a factor. But I mean, how they addressed it, what their approach was, had everything to do with the fact that they felt like they could really rely on Christian Benford to be elite, right? Now, he hasn't been that. And so there's a ripple effect, and obviously cornerback 2 was going to be a question mark, as was safety as well. Let's evaluate how vulnerable you see them being back there moving forward. Sal, let's start with you on this one.
Yeah, they're clearly, I mean, they've got big problems. Christian Benford has got to be a star because they are in big trouble on the other side with Trey White. I think part of the problem, they really can't go man-to-man defense. I mean, I think they would like to with a guy like Benford, but they can't trust Trey White on the other side. Now, what I didn't understand the other night, John, is Drake London is running downfield and he's got an option. I'm going to go this way or I'm going to go that way. Why aren't there two people on Drake London? Why are they sitting back in that soft zone when he was showing you all night long exactly what he was going to do? Penix gets the snap, 3 steps, boom, the ball was out because the guy was wide open. Why are they not double teaming? He was the only receiver they had on their team the other night. He's the only guy that of the receivers who even caught a pass. How is he not being doubled on every single snap? The scheme the other night drove me insane. It was just insane to watch Drake London wide open all night long. And he got targeted 16 times. It wasn't like it was something new. They were doing it all night. Explain this to me, John. Please explain it to me.
Well, I think as the years go by, we gain even greater appreciation for Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. And I think it has not been the same since those two were gone. And even though Poyer was, ironically enough, on the field for the back portion of that football game the other night here, the Bills always seemed, they had Tre'Davious White at corner. And then they always had this turnstile at cornerback too. But you could survive with Levi Wallace and Dane Jackson and Josh Norman and Kevin Johnson and down the line because you had a great guy on the opposite side and you had 2 safeties that can make up for everything else. And now Christian Benford is not playing like Tre'Davious White once was, and you have 2 safeties that you absolutely can't trust to do anything at this point in time. And that's not just the youth of Cole Bishop. This is what Taylor Rapp has shown to be. And now you have question marks at both guys. And now you have an aging veteran in Tre'Davious White. And your savior is going to be a rookie who did not look like someone who was ready to even compete with Tre'Davious White in training camp. Now coming off a knee injury, he's going to make things better. I mean, they are in serious trouble in the secondary here. And I don't know where the options are to go to get better. I've seen people maybe make calls for Jordan Hancock, but again, you're entrusting at a very challenging position to learn and navigate a rookie to be better than a guy who's been in the system for years or your 2nd round pick. I mean, you're asking a lot for in-season Hail Marys to get caught here. And the next thing you know is you're asking your 4th round pick defensive tackle to be the best defensive lineman on the team. You're asking then a 1st round pick off a knee injury who hasn't even played yet this season to be your savior at cornerback. You're maybe asking a 5th round pick to be your savior at safety. I mean, this is not an ideal situation, and no X's and O's can mask all of the problems here. But you're right, Sal. I mean, I think they need to, over the bye week, say, this is how we used to play. We have to figure out a different way to play. Like years ago when the pass rush was bad and Leslie Frazier's like, I never blitz, but I'm going to start blitzing like 40% of the time because that's the only way we're going to survive. Like, I think something drastic in that capacity schematically needs to change to cover up some of these warts since there are so many.
All right. So let's look at Bean and McDermott then, right? And Sal, your point about roster construction, I think, is well taken. I think we should hit that before we wrap this up here. And John, we mentioned this, Sal and I did on the show the other day. You know, you mentioned in the context of Hyde and Poyer about it makes up for a lot of things, right? Well, number 17 makes up for a lot of things when you have that elite quarterback, right? And you're able to get that production and everything that he orchestrates and brings to the table. But you look at the history of their drafts, right? Impact near the top of each of them, right? You're shaking your head. You're answering the question, right? I feel like what you just described with the number of warts reaching this point in this Super Bowl window and a season of great expectations and all of those things, and you're in Allen's prime and you got to get it done and all of that, I feel like the history of misses in the drafts, especially near the tops of them, right? The lack of true impact, it's kind of catching up to them now. That's what I feel like. That's my reaction when I hear you describe things, John, the way you just did.
Yeah, Brandon Beane is a great general manager. He is really, really good at finding good starter long-term options in the lower rounds.
Right.
I mean, his track record is maybe unmatched around the league. But I've always felt before this season and even now that the difference between them and the Kansas City Chiefs largely has been the Chiefs are driven by stars, plural, not just their quarterback, stars. Chris Jones, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. They got, they draft like, even when you're Karlaftis is a really, really good player. Creed Humphrey is an all-pro. McDuffie is an all-pro. These are guys that they have made moves in the first, second, and third rounds. And they're not just guys that you can say, great, we'll give a second contract to when they'll play 8 to 10 years. These are guys that when the chips are in the middle, when maybe they're banged up or other areas of the team are not firing at the levels they need to be, they can make up for it. And that has not been the case. And they have not had an impactful player at a superstar level in the first, second, or third round, in my opinion, except for Josh Allen. Like I'm not like I would never put Ed Oliver in that category. I would never put Greg Rousseau in that category. Like Spencer Brown's a good player. Like they have really, really solid guys that have helped elevate this team to consistent Super Bowl contending status. But these are the moments that Josh Allen needs a Stephon Diggs type player, a Justin Jefferson, a Jamar Chase. And I hate the excuse of, well, you're always drafting low. So are the Chiefs. So are the Eagles. So are other teams around the league. And they keep reloading the cupboard with guys that make moves. And if you don't feel you can get that by drafting them with that low capital, then trade it away. That's what the Rams did, and they won a Super Bowl doing it. Like, these are the types of, if you're going to be in this position, then that's what you got to do. And I think, I agree, Sal, money-wise in season, it's not necessarily doable. But I think that's where the Bills need to be at after this season and beyond is the draft picks are great, and they help you financially navigate the cap better than going and grabbing and trading a guy and paying him 20, 25 mil. But I think that they need to recognize at a few of the key cornerstone spots, that's what needs to happen.
See, I knew this is why I wanted to bring him on, because he thinks just like me, Adam. There's nothing I could even add to what he just said, because it's exactly how I feel. Brandon Beane, congratulations for finding Deion Walker in the 4th round, Shakir in the 5th round. That's nice. Those are good rosterable players that are going to help you, but you got to find stars. John is absolutely right. They have no stars. We've talked about it, Adam, right? It's Allen and Cook. Those are your stars. Those are your stars, because I wouldn't even put anybody on defense in a true star category. They got some nice players, but they don't have stars on defense anywhere. His upper round draft picks have just not been good enough. I'm sorry. They have not been. And he just named all the names. There's no need for me to go over it again. That's what the Bills are lacking. That's why they have not taken that final step, because they do not have the star players. And I'll stop short of calling him a great GM, Brandon or John. He's a great guy, and I love him. He's my favorite GM that I've ever covered. And I think he does a very good job, but I stop short of calling him great, because he has not hit in the 1st round particularly, let alone the 2nd and 3rd round, those first 2 days when you have to find guys who can become stars. That's where he falls short as far as I'm concerned. So everyone blames Sean McDermott, but right now I think Brandon Beane's got to eat a little bit of it too.
So adding that all up, right here about, a 30 seconds to a minute here for these answers. And how much is your view, your evaluation, with a 6-game sample and all of the issues we've gone over in great detail here, how much is your view of this team as, well, let's say potential Super Bowl champion? And let's address it in terms that most fans are, right? How much has it changed? Because mine's been altered a little bit.
Yeah. I heard somebody in the media the other day say that he thinks they're frauds after what they saw the other night. Now, I'm going to stop short of saying they're frauds, but I think we've overrated the Bills. I think we've overrated their roster, and it's starting to manifest itself in these last 2 games, what we're starting to see happen. So, I thought they were going to win the division. I probably still do, But the Patriots are better than anybody thought, and they have an incredibly easy schedule. They're going to be there right to the end. And the Bills have got to figure it out, man, because if they don't, they're not going to win the division. They're up against it. They've got a tough schedule. They've got a roster that we're questioning, and the Patriots are playing nobody. And they've already got a big, big win over the Bills. So, yeah, I think we've kind of overrated them. I don't see them getting to the Super Bowl this year the way things are going right now.
I think I overestimated the question marks and concerns defensively for them. But offenses win championships. I'm sorry. And when you have a quarterback like Josh Allen, I think they'll figure it out offensively. And that's where I think the defense just has to either get hot, get healthy, or figure a few things out. And I think they very much could go on and still win the Super Bowl. The league is flawed in general. I mean, we've seen it through 6 weeks. Every team we thought was the best has had issues, including the Buffalo Bills. So that's why I still think they, as much as anyone else, like Philadelphia, Kansas City, on and on, I think they have as just as good a shot because of their quarterback to still accomplish the ultimate goal of a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'll say this. I felt like, I mean, they're going to go as far as Allen takes them, right? That's cliche, but that's the point. But it's what they have around him. I had plenty of questions about the defense, and John, we've talked about it on the show as well. But I felt like I didn't expect to see the offense hit this much of a lull, right? And so how they diagnose it, how they emerge from the bye week, they've got a very good track record under Sean McDermott, obviously, of doing so. But I feel like things are catching up to them, and teams have sort of figured them out. So it's move and counter move at this point in the chess match that is NFL football, and that speaks to coaching, players, execution, all the way down the line. But I think overrated is probably that's a legitimate term at this point. Whether or not they solve it and get to the Super Bowl, it remains to be seen. It's obviously they're still a favorite at this point, and I still see them that way. They're in that mix. I just view them a little bit differently. All right, 37 minutes. That's a pretty good run at this thing. That means I got to drop in multiple commercials in this thing. I don't think we've ever had that. So, John, welcome to the record books, man. And thanks for your time.
I'm here to make history, baby.
We really appreciate it, and I'll see you Monday night.